Well, good morning, or afternoon, or evening, whenever you're watching this. This is our Wednesday Word, and I'm going to approach this a little bit differently because we're in the middle of a two-part series on Psalm 119, and I gave you an overview of both Sundays last Wednesday. I'm going to use this Wednesday to talk a little bit about our upcoming seminar on the historical reliability of the Gospels. We're going to be using the Gospel of Mark as a test case, as we'll see in a minute. But you'll see up on the screen now, this is the first slide I want to have you look at. It gives you the general details. We'll be meeting together over Zoom on Sundays starting July 5th, a week from Sunday, from 11 o'clock to about 12:15. I'll talk at you for about an hour. Got a lot of information to cover. And then we'll have 10 or 15 minutes of Q&A each week as well to help debrief. Now, as this slide comes off the screen, another one will come up on the screen, and you'll notice that on this particular slide, at the top it says the Gospel of Mark, ESV, English Standard Version, that happens to be the English translation we use at OCF, and it says Jesus of Nazareth at the bottom. We have to be assured, don't we, that what we read in our English Bibles is an accurate reflection of what Jesus actually said and did 2,000 years ago. And as you'll see on the screen here, there are three bridges logically we have to cross to get that kind of assurance. The first one is what I call testimony. Mark, called in the Bible John Mark, wrote his gospel at least 20 years, most of us feel 30, 40 or more years, after Jesus' earthly ministry, after Jesus was crucified and was raised from the dead. So there's a gap between the time Jesus lived and the time John Mark wrote. And we have to ask ourselves, was Mark able to tell us the truth about Jesus? And in view of the fact that he was not one of Jesus' disciples or earliest followers and received much of his information secondhand. So was Mark able to tell the truth about Jesus? Is his testimony reliable? But it's more than that. We have to ask ourselves, was Mark willing to tell the truth about Jesus? One of the basic assumptions of liberal gospel criticism is that during the period of time in early Christian history between the writing of the Gospels on the one hand and Jesus on the other, that 30-year or so gap, liberal critics assume that the church was making up all kinds of stories about Jesus that didn't really happen in his life. So we have to ask, not only was Mark able to tell us the truth about Jesus? Did he have access to the information? Was he willing to tell us the truth about Jesus? Or, as many of our critics are trying to tell us, did Mark spin the truth and add a whole bunch of stuff that Jesus never really said and did? So the first bridge we need to get across is that of testimony. We need to be assured that Mark's testimony is reliable. He's really telling us the truth about the historical Jesus. But that's not enough, because Mark wrote this down in his gospel. We call this the autograph, the original document Mark wrote, and we don't have that anymore. What we have are copies in various languages that have themselves been copied over thousands of years of church history, what we call the Greek manuscripts there on the screen. And you'll notice there's an issue there that we have to cross as well, a bridge, and I call that bridge transmission. We have to be assured that those manuscripts were faithfully copied over the years and that Mark's original message was accurately preserved. Again, there are critics who will say, oh, the church put all kinds of spin on what Mark wrote. Even if Mark told us the truth, we can't get at it because of the manuscript tradition and all the spin that was put on it by the church over the years. So that's a reasonable objection. It's one that I think is easily refuted, but we need to wrestle with it. We need to have reliable testimony, also reliable transmission. And then finally, because most of us don't read Koine Greek, New Testament Greek, we need to be assured that the folks who are translating these Greek manuscripts into our English Bibles are themselves not putting a spin on it and are giving us what is actually in the Greek manuscript. So we need a reliable testimony on Mark's part. We need reliable transmission on the part of church history, as historically Christians have copied these manuscripts. And we need reliable translations, modern translations, to know that what we have is really what the manuscripts actually said. And if we can confidently cross these three bridges, we can have confidence that when we open our English Bibles, again in this case the English Standard Version, that we are truly reading and seeing what Jesus actually said and did. So this is our game plan. We're going to walk through these three bridges one at a time over our 4 weeks together, and hopefully learn some things about just how wonderfully reliable the Gospels are. And just as an aside, I'm not going to come at this as a theologian. I'm going to come at this as a historian. My training's been in history. I had my theology in seminary and all that. But we're not going to argue for inerrancy. I believe in inerrancy, but that's not what we're going to argue for. We're going to use the traditional historical canons and methodologies that I was trained in at good old UCLA in my doctoral program, and just look at the text as a historical project, so to speak, to talk about the historical reliability of the Gospels. So again, we hope you'll join us. It'll start a week from Sunday at 11 o'clock. You'll get the links through the church emails, and if you're out there somewhere and you're not on our email list, you should contact Shannon at ocfchurch.com and get on that email list so you're kept up to speed. See you this Sunday for the second half of Psalm 119, and I hope the following Sunday for the historical reliability of the Gospels.